Today we're going to go ahead and solve problems that have multiple fractions in them, and you'll notice that we have letters in the denominator, so I want to show you a trick that you can use to help you get through those. So the key is finding a common denominator. It's just like we were doing in the previous lesson. Now, I always like to label my work as I go along. I'm not going to write the words common denominator over and over, so I'm just going to write CD for short. That way you're not looking at that and being like, what the heck does that mean? And I want to throw this caution out there. We're not allowed to divide by 0. So 0 in the bottom is bad, is what I always tell my students. If you try to do that in your calculator, you're going to get an error message. So that's going to create some issues for us. So we want to make sure that we just know that rule going into this. All right, so the danger of having letters in the denominator when you have an equation is you're going to solve for that letter. So let's just say, and don't write this part down for now. All right, just watch. Let's just say that you did all the work in this problem and you got x equals 0. That would mean the original problem would have been this. Now see, that doesn't make any sense. You can't do 5/2 plus 4 over 0, and you can't get negative 11 over 0. That doesn't make any sense. That's not okay. So when we solve for x, we're using our calculator and we're doing stuff with the numbers. The calculator doesn't realize x is in the denominator, but we do, and that's one of those differences between humans and robots. All right, machines are just cranking out numbers and saying, here you go. We have to decide if those numbers are logical or not. So if that were to happen, then we would deny that answer. We would say, yeah, I know that's what I got from the work, but technically I'm not allowed to use that as an answer. So right off the get-go, I state what's called my restrictions. So in this problem, I'm not allowed to get 0 for x. That means if I do, from my work, I'm going to throw that answer in the trash because it's no good. X is allowed to be anything else, and I won't get like an issue from that, but it cannot be 0. All right, so when I look for my common denominator, I'm literally just going around and writing down what I see in the bottom. I see x's and I see 2's. So I'm just going to write 2x. I don't need to write x twice. I just need it once. And then just like we normally would get rid of fractions, we're just going to times all of our stuff by 2x. And then comes the fun part. Anything that matches top and bottom, you get to cross out. So these x's are going to cross out, these 2's are going to cross out, and these x's are going to cross out. So if you clean it up a bit, you should now have 8, 5x, and negative 22. And then you just solve it like a normal equation, and you get negative 6. So there's no rule saying I'm not allowed to use negative 6 as an answer, so I can keep that answer. That's the solution to the problem. We're going to do another one here, but there's a little more stuff in the denominator. So again, x in the bottom, that's pretty dangerous stuff. I want to make sure that I don't end up with 0 in the bottom. A lot of kids will tell me, oh, x can't be 0. It can be 0. If you do 0 minus 2, you won't get 0. So that's all right. You have to think what number would get me 0 in the bottom, and that would be 2. If I were to get 2 as an answer, 2 minus 2 is 0, I would end up with 0 in the bottom. So 2 is not okay as an answer. Just want to state that right off the bat so I don't forget it. And then I can see they both have x minus 2. That is the common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and put x minus 2 up in all the tops just like that. I always like to draw parentheses around the bottom x minus 2 just so it's a little more obvious that you have some matches. And then we're going to rewrite. So over here I have 5x. Over here, distribute, and you'll get that. And then we're going to go ahead and solve for x. All right. Now, I did get 2 as an answer, However, I stated in the beginning, I'm not allowed to get 2 as an answer. So if I do get 2 from my work, I have to throw that in the trash. So that answer is no good, unfortunately. So the work just tells us what makes the equation balance, but it doesn't take into account that the bottom can't be 0. So we're not allowed to use 2 as an answer. So I don't have a solution to this problem, unfortunately. All right, then it starts to get trickier. So before I just jump into my common denominator and everything, I want to pay attention to this right here. This is special. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this into x minus 1, x plus 1. We're going to factor that down. That's going to save us a headache later on. And I want to look at the bottoms and say, okay, what numbers would cause a 0? So I don't want negative 1, and I don't want positive 1 either, because that would make this one 0. So I'm not allowed to have those as answers. If I get those, I'll have to throw them in the trash. All right, and then when I look across the bottom, I see x plus 1, I see x minus 1, and I'm not writing x plus 1 again. There's no need for that. And then we'll put them all on top. Again, might be a good idea to put the top right here in parentheses, because if you don't, that's when we start to see mistakes happen. Then we get to do the fun stuff, cross matches out. So this is kind of nice, that all crosses out. Now this is a little tricky because you're doing 4x plus 1 times x minus 1. You're going to have to FOIL. So we've FOILed a lot this year. I'm going to go ahead and just say what you get when you FOIL. This would be your left side. You're going to also have to FOIL on the right side. You're going to have to FOIL these two parentheses together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that a while. This 12's just hanging around, but I'm going to leave the 3 alone for now. I'm going to take care of these two. I'm going to FOIL that out and get this. All right, and then you're going to go ahead and solve it. Alright, now since this problem has an x squared in it, you want to just move everything to the left side so that it equals 0. Anytime we have x squared and x in it, we want this to equal 0. And either you're going to use x method if you can get it to work, or you're going to use quadratic formula. The x method is much quicker if it works, and luckily it does. You can make -10 and -3. So my two answers to this problem are +5 and -2. And both of those answers are allowed. It doesn't say I can't have them, so I'm going to keep both of those. And then we have one more here, and just like before, this can be factored. So if I take the 2 seconds to factor it, it probably will save me a lot of work. So I'm going to pull the x out front and change it to x minus 1. And I'm just going to get rid of that. I don't need that anymore. And I'm looking at what could cause 0. I would get +1 or 0 itself. So those are my restrictions. I'm not allowed to keep those answers if I get them. And then on the bottom we have x, and we have x minus 1. No duplicates. So we're ready to go. Gonna put that common denominator on top. Do some awesome crossing out. And then we're just gonna clean it up. Looks like I got a 2 over here, and I got an x over here. And it doesn't say I'm not allowed to keep my 2, so 2 is the answer. And that's about it.